Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Trident Talks, and I'd like to welcome Ed Merrett today as a Security Operations Centre Manager. Ed, thanks for coming.
Hello, how are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing well. Very, very busy, which is always good, especially during a pandemic. So for those of people that don't know you, would you like to give them a little bit of a background story to who you are and how you got into this space?
As Charlie's already said, I'm Ed. I've been working in the security industry probably for around 5 or so years now, with quite accelerated kind of growth and progression, starting off in that kind of major retailer kind of space, helping shape and build a security function there, and kind of growing as that industry grew into maturing security as well. Quite quickly found myself in that team lead position, and kind of managing those operations, day-to-day stuff within security, which really gave me the flavour and love for kind of what we do within this industry. More recently, I've kind of jumped into that management position now where I get the full responsibility of running that security operation, and trying to embed security into an organisation. I have a lot of experience basically taking something from nothing and putting a decent security framework in place, and really learning from that and developing that in organisations is a real challenge that I do enjoy doing that.
Very much a high flyer then.
You can say that. I won't say it myself.
Okay, that's good. So in your experience then, you've worked for a few organisations that have matured their security postures over, you've been part of that journey. So what's that been like? Has it been quite similar with the different organisations, and what's it been like during this whole pandemic?
The first thing I say is it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Security is no longer something that's smoke and mirrors, something that's seen in the movies. People have woken up and they're paying attention to it. Building out an operation and understanding how to grow and move those frameworks forward and move the structure and maturity of the business forward is always something that has its own element to, no matter where you are. It's never going to be the same. But what we really try and do is focus on the basics. And I will say this to anyone who I work with in the industry: get the foundations things right. It's so easy to spend millions or hundreds of thousands of pounds on the next best AI, machine learning, all the vendors will try and sell you. And when you're trying to build out these frameworks and mature organisations, it's just about stripping that back, really understand the foundational parts of security, and try and grow those naturally within the business with a real keen eye on how the business will learn and change around that. You know, in my first organisation where I got to do that, big organisation, fairly big budget, lots of backing to do that, and you could argue that's relatively simple, and actually the technical side of it and doing it is where it becomes a little bit difficult, trying to map it into massive IT organisations or into a bigger business. Where I moved to a slightly smaller organisation, I think the challenge is more about getting that understanding and culture right from the word go, getting that buy-in from a board or getting that buy-in from senior execs to understand what you're trying to do is of benefit to the organisation and not just a kind of pit of money. You mentioned around trying to do it in a pandemic. Everything in the pandemic around this time is challenging, right? And I think you can look at it with two eyes. It's very easy to look at the negatives that this virus has caused, right? Massive budget constraints, people recouping cash back, people furloughing off workers. Everyone's busy. I mean, you mentioned it right at the start. I've never been more busy than I have during this time, and I'm sure you're the same. But that gives a real positive light on what you're trying to do, because it excels and speeds up the development process for IT. Remote working being such a massive thing. Businesses that have never really thought about it, now pushing their users to work from home remotely, want to throw in technology and throw it in fast. And from somebody in the security space, I just see opportunity to get that right and secure that properly, but also deliver a really strong and stable, secure solution to a company. And I think lockdown has really helped grow security operations, because there's so much more we need to look at, and there's so many more eyes you need to be kind of on screen looking at things.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, where you need to totally understand each company's security requirement completely different. You need to understand the landscape, what they do as a business, and what's important to them. Security is always obviously important. So it's no use, you're right, going out getting certain vendors, we won't mention any names, paying through the roof for tooling, and then an employee clicking on a phishing email, which brings me on to your podcast that you run, HackableYou. I was listening to that before, and you mentioned there's another organisation that's probably undergone their second major breach, and we think that was probably down to a phishing email, right?
Absolutely, phishing is just so rife at the minute, and yeah, no, thank you for the for the plug, we do run a podcast where we like to dive into these topics, and you'll notice if you're a frequent listener, I think most of the major breaches we ever touch on is always down to that kind of phishing link. And again, I'll say what I said at the beginning, it's the basics of security.
Yeah.
You could spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on an email security solution, but if you're not training your users and educating them and telling them about those phishing links and about the basics of security, you'll never beat the attacker that way. And that's what we try to put across in that podcast, really, is, touch on the news and bring people to light about what on earth is going on in the kind of cybersecurity industry, but also try and educate and inspire people to kind of pick that up and delve into that and do something with the information we're saying. It's so easy just to blare out information to someone that will have no effect. And what we want to do is give people the option and actions to go and do something, whether they be a junior SOC analyst, someone trying to get into the industry, or even a seasoned CISO will take something from what we're trying to explain.
Come on to your point there about getting juniors into the industry in a second. Aside from junior people coming in, where do you see the future of security operations heading, especially post-pandemic?
Yeah, post-pandemic has really shifted this. I think every business is looking at a lean operation. Furloughing off workers has given, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing, a view on actually who's providing benefits to an organisation, what operations can be more lean. Security is not exempt to that. Most organisations, you can see that security operations is a constant need, no matter whether there be a pandemic or not. All these threats still exist, and in fact grow during this pandemic. But I do think that lean security operations will be moving forward. I think having seasoned, talented people in house to do most of the hardcore investigation work, and maybe outsourcing will grow. And I genuinely see that. Gone are the days where 30, 40 man SOCs are actually a necessary thing. There will always be a use case for that. Maybe big financial organisations, people who are heavily regulated by regulatory bodies like the FCA, were required to have these eyes of glass and need that monitoring. But I think post-pandemic, you're going to see far leaner security operations, and you'll be looking to hire the right person who can grow into the space that you need, no matter what their technical skills or background is, rather than just having somebody that knows, okay, I know how to do forensic, I know how to do threat intelligence. They're so niche, I just don't think those roles will always be readily available for most organisations in the future.
I think as a candidate, you need to be prepared to be able to adapt as well. So if you're looking to kind of get into the industry, you need to be prepared to be flexible, understand what's happening, the changes that are required. And again, as what you said right at the start, what that business requires from you. So moving on to that point, what would your advice be to someone who's looking to kind of come in as a security analyst?
Firstly, I would say learn the passion for it, right? Understand that, like with everything, but especially within cybersecurity, it's so fluid and things are changing every day. New technologies, new threats are evolving every single day. And learn to be that fluid and stretch yourself a bit like an elastic band into different areas of security. Don't find yourself, if you're trying to get into the industry, pigeonholing yourself into malware reversing or threat intelligence, let's say. Really understand the phrase mile wide but an inch deep. And as a junior security analyst or someone who's never worked in the industry before trying to get in, having a nice breadth of knowledge about everything within security is only going to help you get your foot in the door. Once you're in there, you and I both can testament to this, opportunity is rife. So get that breadth of understanding, that mile wide, inch deep thinking behind security. And once you get in that role, it is down to you to go wherever you want because there's so much opportunity.
That's really good advice. So many times I'll speak to some candidates or other people that are looking to kind of get involved, and they don't have certain understanding of key areas, and you don't need a fully in-depth understanding of it. If you get asked that in an interview, you're not going to be able to progress forward because it's quite key, right? But it's really good advice, and I think a lot of people should adhere to that. One of our other videos as well, someone kind of echoed what you just said there, so that's really good.
There's also a lot that should be pushed back on a hiring manager. If you're a hiring manager looking to fill those roles, open your mind up. Don't be in a pigeonholed space where you're looking for someone with all these skills that must meet all of these certifications. I've done it. I've hired somebody that hasn't had any experience in cybersecurity before, but they've got the mindset, they know how to investigate, they're curious, they're driven and they're passionate. That's the person who's going to give you the most return on investment, because you ask them to do something, to try something new, they're not going to say no. Whereas if you hire somebody that's got all these certifications box ticked, It only just means something on paper at the end of the day. So I urge hiring managers to just open their eyes up a little bit more to what the future of security looks like and what a lean operation looks like, and hire the right person for the role, not just the right certifications.
I think that's absolutely key advice there. I think you nailed it on the head. So the final question then, I haven't prepared for this one at all. So if you weren't in cybersecurity, where would you be? What would you be doing?
Oh, great question. I'll give you two, right? As a kid, I wanted to be a chef, and I have I'm not afraid to admit my man crush on Gordon Ramsay, so I'd like to say that I'm a chef. But that being said, my father was a long-term Met police officer, and I definitely think I'd probably do something within law enforcement or the military or something like that if I wasn't stuck behind a computer fighting these hackers every day.
That's really good. It's really good. So, Gordon Ramsay is a good guy, but then Met Police as well, so two different things. But here you are, now you are, SOC Manager. So that's brilliant. It's been really great to have you on. Thank you so much for your time. If anyone else got any questions, feel free to reach out to yourself or myself, and we'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. And check out the HackableYou Podcast.
Cheers. Thanks, Ed.
Bye.
Bye.